Almost. Almost there.
Okay, we're going to get started. The meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Public Defender Service Corporation of November 23rd is now called to order. Before I ask the secretary to call the roll, I just want to greet my colleagues, the Honorable Presiding Judge Alberto Lamarena and board members present, Donna Muña Canata and Attorney Cynthia Ekibi. And now I will ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Chief Justice Hector Carbolito.
I am present and I am logged on from my chamber here at the Guam Judicial Center.
Presiding Judge Alberto C. Lamarena III.
You were muted, PJ.
I am present at the Guam Judicial Center. I'm sorry. Thanks a lot, CJ, for telling me.
Cynthia D. Ekibi.
Alpha Day, Your Honors, and everyone. I am present and here in my office, law office in Sinajaña.
Trustee Donna Muña Canata.
Hello, I'm here in East Sinajaña at my office at Guam Auto Spot. And
Guam Bar
All right.
President Terlahi.
So hopefully President Jackie Terlahi will join us in due time. But the secretary has indicated that we have 4 of 5 trustees present and we have a quorum and we are able to conduct the regular business of the board that is before us today. There's been due notice of the meeting as indicated in our agenda, and we will start with the approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to adopt subject to corrections?
Move to adopt, Mr. Chairman, subject to correction.
second,
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adopting the minutes of October 26, 2021, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it, and it is unanimously adopted. The first item under our all business is the financial status update of the Public Defender Service Corporation, the APD, and I assume the Domestic Violence Program, the allotment releases, and I recognize our Finance Controller, Mr. Mike Moreno.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon to everybody. Public Defender Service Corporation and the Ultimate Public Defender has received its allotment, and we are at 70% at this time. That being said, this is a payroll week, and we should be receiving another allotment within the week. For the Domestic Violence Program, we are still invoicing all services except sexual assaults to ICJ Arp Funding, and we did receive the approval of Stock 20 funding. We have received all the MOUs and the worksheet requests. For the EJC, we have received the signed MOU and work request approved for the first quarter of fiscal year 2022. Payments for EJC billings have been received for the months of March through through July. The grant funding was exhausted as at the end of September 2021. Receivables as of today are for the months of August and September for a total of $28,000. And for October, which is fiscal year 2022, we have a receivable of $7,400. And that concludes the finances for Public Defender, APD, and DVT.
So what is the status of our EJC grant funds? I mean, we have, I assume we have certain payables outstanding, and we're now going into, as I understand, Mr. Reynolds, but the last payment was in August. So we're now September, October, going in 3 months of not paying whatever outstanding bills from the grant funding. Kathy, do you have any information in reference to funds releases from the EJC grant funds?
Your Honor, the only thing that we're paying for relative to EJC is salaries for our contractual and our full-time employee. What we were told by Shar, and we also have Jeanette from DSC on the Zoom link with us. But what we were told by Shar that, you know, the bills would probably come like 60 days after invoicing, about 60 days. So they have committed that we would get reimbursement 60 days after we bill. And so the last board meeting, they stated that the MOU is being routed for signature. It was at the AG's office, and after that, it'll go to the governor's office. I'm not sure if Jeanette wants to chime in as to where the MOU is at and what the status is with the invoices.
So Jeanette, if you may update the board so we can see if there's other options that we need to take in order to not have these salaries unpaid for such a lengthy period of time.
Okay, for the unpaid invoices, I know that those were already processed through our business office. So I will check with Department of Administration, what's the status and why is there, if they received it, what's the delay? As far as the MOU, we already have a registered contract for beginning fiscal year 2022. And that copy was provided to Kathleen Moylan yesterday. The registered contract for Elder Justice Center.
So I'd like to explore, the board may permit that the Public Defender Service Corporation look at its cash flow and see if it's able to advance the funds to pay for these salaries and contractual services. And so long as there is an assurance of reimbursement and there's not been a risk in the past, I don't know necessarily if we should continue with the practice of having these items unpaid for a lengthy period of time, where we have personnel depending on the payment in reference to whatever living expenses they may have. Steve or Kathy, do you have any insight as to whether or not that is something that the corporation can handle with its cash flow?
Thank you, Chief Justice, and we would appreciate the ability to do that. We want to make sure nobody goes unpaid, and I think we do have sufficient cash flow to cover DSC until they make us whole.
So I would like to just know what the feeling of the board members are, and I'd like for us to authorize management, if that is the consensus of the board, that they be allowed to advance the cash to make these payments subject to reimbursement when they do receive the grant funds.
Sir, does that have to be a motion?
I think we should. Let's do that just so we have a proper authorization to Mr. Hattori and his management staff that this is also approved by the board in allowing management to make these payments, and they are in a better position to determine whether or not they're in a position to make these payments. So
I can motion it if you like.
Yes, please. The motion would be to the effect of authorizing the administration to advance the funds to pay for the personnel cost items under the grant funding until such time as there is a reimbursement from the funding source, if there is a motion to that effect.
CJ, may I just amend the motion to that if they do this, they must report this to the Judicial Council, the nearest meeting.
You mean to the board?
Notify the judicial action of the next Judicial Council meeting.
Yeah, the
So that
the
we're aware that these,
You meant the
so
board
the
of
board is aware
trustees,
that these transfers are being made, huh? I'm
right?
sorry.
You meant the board of trustees of the
Yes,
corporation.
the
not
board of trustees, they informed the board of trustees at the next judicial council meeting that these transfers were made, so that at least we're aware of what transfers are being made by the management.
All right, and I have
And-
no objection to that amendment. So on the amendment to the motion.
Your,
first-
your honor, may I add? I have no objections to trustee, to both the presiding judge and trustee Kanata's comments, but I would like in the condition though, as the court, that the parties have indicated, so long as the public defender is able to do so. And so I would like that condition in there too, because if it comes to a point where it's going to, the funding hasn't exactly come through, although it's going to come through, I certainly don't want to compromise public defenders' own obligations. So if I could, I would also add that further amendment to presiding judge's amendment, Your Honor.
All right, so let's first dispose of Attorney Cynthia Ekebe's amendment to the main motion. And that is that the public defender be authorized to make the payment so long as it doesn't put itself at risk, that it's jeopardizing its cash flow for its general operation. Is there a second to that?
I second the motion.
There's a second. On this Ekebe amendment to the motion, please say aye.
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 That amendment passes. On the first amendment to the main motion of the presiding judge, and that is that the management report back to the Board of Trustees at the next following meeting as far as the status of the payments and whether it continues to have the ability to make these cash advances, and how we're to proceed from that point on. Is there a second to the presiding judge's?
I'll second it, Your Honor.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. No further discussion. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. It's been unanimously adopted. On the main motion as amended to authorize management to make these cash advances to pay the salaries and personnel costs of the Elder Justice Center obligations. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll
the
second
motion.
it.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. There being no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, board members. I think in the spirit of the holidays that those who have may not received payments for a couple of months are, I'm sure, appreciative of our efforts to have them paid as they proceed with their duties. So continuing on to the next item on the agenda is the report of our Executive Director, Mr. Hattori. Mr. Hattori, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chief Justice, and welcome board. Joining you guys from Las Vegas, and I haven't really fared well enough over here gambling wise. So, but still, thanks for letting me join you from here. So we really don't have much to report. I mean, the one thing that is significant is that we were approved for ARP funding in the amount of I believe it was 1.6 million, and about 1.1 million of that is intended for the Elder Justice Center as additional funding so that we could expand the amount of services that we're providing. We do have to comply with some requirements to get the funding released, specifically a spending plan as well as a staffing pattern. And so we're trying to accomplish that as soon as possible so we could hopefully expand the services that the board has allowed us to undertake. And so this is really helpful because we've been using public defender service staff to help run the program. With the ARP funding, they'll be able to hire staff to replace the staff that we've been using to provide the services. And so I'm not sure I believe a draft was circulated and it might have been made part of the packet. So if you have questions about that, the team's here to answer those questions. But
All right.
that's the only thing really of significance.
Thank you,
Thank-
Steve. We'll get to those items later on the agenda, and those numbers seem inflated based on what information is provided to the board. But I'm sure we'll straighten it out when we get to the actual items on the agenda. But in reference to the operation, other than the Elder Justice Center, is there anything that you wish to report to the Board of Trustees in reference to the work of the public defender? Is there anything that you would want to?
No, we don't have anything else to add to that.
All right. Okay. So the next item is from the managing attorney for the alternative public defender, and Ms. Annie Gale, you are recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. What I have to report is we're going to go on it in the new business, my above step recruitment for Mr. Lemons. Other than that, we're still just trying to maintain every day going to court and managing the day-to-day operations of the office. Nothing else major to report, Your Honor. Thank you. And
All
happy
right.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the members of the board to Mr. Hattori and Ms. Gale in reference to their respective organizations? There being none, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, and that's the Elder Justice Center and the update under all business. And I would like to recognize Ms. Kat Seguenza for you to open the discussion on this item.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good afternoon, board members. Unfortunately, I suffered a neck injury, which makes it very uncomfortable for me to sit at the computer for long periods of time. As a result, I had to step down as the managing attorney of the Elder Justice Center. But my resignation is going to be effective as of September 30, which is when my 6-month contract ended. I'd like to assure the board that I'm still involved in the program. I'm currently a line attorney working part-time, and I'm very pleased that the executive director, Steve Hattori, has asked me to work with the advisory council. I think that's a good idea, and I will continue to do that. I also will continue to do whatever I can do to help this program. There's been a lot of work. A lot of people have invested in it, and I will commit to you to do whatever I can to help. I understand that Kat Moylan has prepared a report and respectfully asked that she be recognized. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Kat. And Kathleen Moylan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Your Honors, board members, and everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. Hi, Attorney Kat. Thank you for opening up. I want to acknowledge Jeanette and thank her for all her efforts and diligence in following through with the MOU and providing this to us. I want to share with the board and everyone that pursuant to our MOU, we are required to provide legal assistance to at least 25 seniors per month. Except for the month of October, this was the one exception. This focused on transition and training. So that being said, for October, we focused on legal services, training, and technical assistance, as well as outreach and collaboration. My next slide, please. On this slide, we wanted to provide a summary of those 3 different activities. Under legal services, you'll see that we received 72 inquiries from the public, and these came through either telephone inquiries, in-person requests, or via email. For the month, we added 52 seniors to our wait list, and we opened 6 cases, and our gratitude to our attorneys for closing 67 cases for the month. The third column is training and technical assistance. We participated in Get Care training together with the Division of Senior Citizens. This was very critical to us because it addressed our case management system and it launched a new feature specific to our legal services. So our gratitude for DSC for coordinating that for us together with their consultants. We also received technical assistance training from Ms. Gomez. These meetings focused on our reporting requirements. And then finally, the last column deals with outreach and collaboration. We participated in 2 outreach events with one of our great partners. This is GWEP, it's Geriatrics Workforce Enhancement Program. And the title of these sessions is Advanced Care Planning. This 2 occurred in the month of October. We encourage everyone in the public to really participate. There are more live Zoom sessions that are being scheduled for the month of December. And so we encourage everyone to participate. They're great. They're led by Dr. Lee and Dr. Anna. So for the month of October, we had 21 participants in total. Next slide, please. On this slide, we provide a little more detail in terms of the types of inquiries coming in. I know that there was interest in terms of what is the need out there. You'll see the scope of the inquiries that fell within the scope of our allowable scope of activities in terms of powers of attorney, legal guardianship, last will, and living will. What's also important here are the types of legal services that fall outside our scope, right? And so there were requests about probate, deeds of gift, adult guardianship, as well as minor guardianship. And so we made the referrals to include our Guam Bar Association, the Lawyer Referral Service, Guam Legal Services, Micronesian Legal Services, the OPG, the Office of the Public Guardian, to Attorney Marcy Sanchez. We also made referrals to Adult Protective Services, Child Protective Services. We work closely with Case Management Services. They are the entry point for all the Title III services that really support our seniors and their families. And so we are working closely with them. And we've also made referrals to our main office to assist with adult guardianships and guardianships over minors. Next slide, please. Finally, on this last slide, we just wanted to show you, the types of legal services that we closed for those open cases. Although we were exempted for the month of October in terms of providing legal services, these cases that we opened were really for our seniors in critical need of services. And so our gratitude to our attorneys and staff who helped us address their urgent legal issues. And then the closed cases, we closed 67 cases, and that's the scope of the work that was done and performed by our team of attorneys and our legal secretaries and staff. And so what we're looking forward to in the month of November is actually we wanted to introduce our new staff member. Her name is Jessica Lee. She is our senior law clerk. And so we're so happy and pleased to have her as part of our team. She is going to be assisting us with our legal intake and all other activities for the Elder Justice Center. We will continue to collaborate with our case management services, a huge component of our service delivery to our seniors. And we are scheduling for all our intakes to address the growing need of our seniors on our wait list. And so if there are any questions, we welcome the questions, and happy Thanksgiving from our EJC team.
Any questions from any of the board members for Kathleen?
None.
So where does this put us, Steve, in reference to our attorney staff? Now that is Kat Seguenza going to continue with the Elder Justice Center?
Oh, yes, Your Honor, and we really wouldn't have been able to accomplish this much without her hard work. And so she is still committing to doing, I think, 40 hours every pay period. Hopefully, we try not to burden her too much. I mean, her contributions, obviously, everyone's aware of, right? And so we're able to bill other attorneys like Ron Haynes and Dave Highsmith to a limited extent against the grant. And then we have Jessica Lee, who has probably almost 2 years of experience working with elder clinic in law school and with some law firms doing elder law stuff. I think back in her other state, was that Wisconsin? And so we're really excited. She'll obviously be under the supervision of the attorneys, but she'll be able to meet and answer a lot of the basic legal questions as a law clerk. And so we really believe we'll be able to meet more than 25 clients a month, just with the grant and the services that the PDSC is providing. And we're hoping to use the ARP funding, of course, to increase the amount of services, maybe hopefully doubling it. We just need to be able to hire a full-time attorney. If we did that, then we would easily accomplish, the goal of doubling the number of clients we meet a month.
All right, so excuse me, but I just noticed that we have our president of the Guam Bar, attorney Jackie Terlahi, who has joined us for our Board of Trustees. And so we have all 5 members present and accounted for in reference to today's meeting. So just for my information, then Steve, you said that if I understand you correctly, that you're looking to hire a managing attorney for the Elder Justice Center. Is there a recruitment in progress to do that?
Yes, I know that a couple of attorneys have approached us about it already. And we're also looking at seeing if some of the in-house attorneys want to consider it as well. But all that's contingent upon the release of the ARP monies that the governor has allocated to our office.
And so, Kat, you no longer have any interest in continuing as a managing attorney?
Your Honor, I can't commit at this time, but we can see how we go down the road. It's a pinched nerve. It may get better, and we'll see. In terms of a commitment, I can't commit right at this moment.
All right.
Thanks.
All right. So, Steve, if then you could just, of course, keep us informed, and you'll put that. Well, let's leave this as a regular agenda item in our monthly board meeting, so we can see the progress that the Elder Justice Center is making in reference to its personnel. And of course, the workload that is being completed under the current arrangement. So as I understand it, you then have, Mr. Ron Haynes is a staff lawyer at the public defender who's then detailed for part of the time to perform services at the Elder Justice Center. And David Highsmith, David has been there from the beginning. And so, Ms. Kathy Seguenza, so you have 1 contract and 2 staff attorneys. Is that currently the staffing of the Elder Justice Center?
Yes, and they're basically, between the 2 of them, anticipated to bill 40 hours a pay period. So between Ms. Seguenza and Ron and Dave, it'll be at 80 hours a pay period. So it's basically between the 3 of them, 1 full-time attorney. And then with the ARP money, we're going to hire a full-time attorney, and then we might not be able to use Anita, Ron, or Dave as much.
All right. Okay. We'll leave that to your discretion, and that you report back to the board in reference to how this is progressing. And then we can weigh in at that time. Any questions from the members of the board in reference to this interim arrangement?
I do have one suggestion, Mr. Chairman. If Mr. Hattori would like to start announcing that the position may be available to the general bar. I know there's quite a significant amount of attorneys on this island who do have experience in that area. That you could utilize the Guam Bar Association's listserv to put that information out and available to the bar members.
Oh, okay. Thank you, President Jackie. We'll be sure to do that. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, so let's then move to the next item, where we are going to discuss the American Rescue Plan funding and the proposed budget that has been allocated from the ARP. So before we begin, Kathy, has the money been loaded and how much? Because this doesn't reconcile with the figures that Steve was saying at the outset of the meeting.
So, Your Honor, we were given notice that we actually will be awarded $1.5 million, $1,572,000 of ARP money. 580 was loaded into an account that we actually sent a request to DOA to receive the money in our, so that they can do a transfer into our account. They are waiting for our budget digest as well as the plan, which we're working on. But when we made the request, and we never imagined we'd get money at all, because we've asked for money for CARES. We were quite shocked to get the amount of 1.5. What we've done if you go to exhibit, next page. What we've done is split the 1.5 into 2 years, FY 2022 and FY 2023, go all the way down there. Okay. And so this would allow us to, as presented at that last board meeting, of the kind of money we needed for EJC. If you look at the column C, the 772 was just about the amount that we wanted for EJC if we were to really do the center with the right staff, the right office space, and the case management system that would allow us to track the number of cases we are handling in terms of the number of seniors. That would bring us to the 772 amount that we did present to the board with the various scenarios that we had a couple of meetings ago. So the 580 in column B is what they loaded, and the balance would be loaded into FY 2023, but they're just pending our report and a letter from the executive director, which we hope to have by early next week, if not the end of the week.
All right, well, that's excellent news in reference to the resources that are being provided for the Elder Justice Center. It's 580,000, and the balance of the funds for the public defender, how is that proposed to be used? Is there a budget proposal in terms of what that's going to be used for?
Most of the money would be earmarked for EJC, a great majority of the money, and also to cover our COVID-related expenses that we incurred as a part of the general fund. And since we've not gotten any money from CARES, we were hoping that some of that money would be reimbursed back to what we used from our general fund account. So that's something that we're going to propose to BDMR, that we also have that be reimbursed by the ARP money.
Great. So just so we all understand the figures, the 192,144, that comes from the DSC grant.
Correct.
And so the 580,070, that's the EJC funds that has been loaded already on the DOA accounts for the purpose of the Public Defender Service Corporation. And so for FY 2022, we're looking at a 772,214,000 expenditure that the public defender should be allowed to draw down from these federal funds for FY 22. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then FY and the items that are listed there, itemized, is the corresponding expenses. And so for FY 2023, again, we're assuming that the grant will come through and that there is going to be a balance of 601,000 from the ARP, 601,375 from the balance of the ARP funding that has been allocated for the corporation. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, and so the intention of management is that this balance also be allocated for the Elder Justice Center for its 2023 operation.
Your Honor, that's quite correct. And we will, when we submitted our letter to the governor's office, we also mentioned that we would want to do services for our veterans who are also underserved and underrepresented. So that was what we would also like to see happen, and that we would propose to the board, that in addition to our elderly, that we also help our veterans, and that would be in line with the veteran courtroom that is at the Judicial Center. So we're hoping that we can also include assisting some of the veterans.
Okay. And I assume that when you say this, that these are authorized uses within the limitations of the ARP funding requirements.
Correct.
All right. Okay, well, we'll take it a year at a time. And so right now there's a proposal to allocate from the ARP funds that have been authorized for the Public Defender Service Corporation, the amount of $580,070. And it is broken down. And if you just, I don't know who's controlling, JT, if you could just scroll down. So it's broken down where we start with personnel, regular salaries, increments, and special pay of $205,000 plus corresponding benefits. And what is that going to cover? What is that going to pay for?
We actually, Your Honor, have a staffing pattern. So from the ARP money, we would like to hire what we, based on the scenarios provided to the board 2 board meetings ago, was another attorney, a paralegal, a secretary, a legal, 2 secretaries, and a legal clerk.
And so these will be new
Correct.
personnel in a that and it's not something that is currently there's staff from the public defender that's going to be detailed. This is actual new hires to hire for the dedicated to the Elder Justice Center operation.
Correct, Your Honor. Right now, currently with the federal money that we've gotten from DSC, we only, the amount allocated or earmarked from DSC only provides for us to absorb an attorney and a secretary. So we believe that based on what was presented, that this would be a full complement to the center.
Yeah, and so refresh my memory just because I don't have it in front of me. You said that this was pursuant to a staffing pattern that was proposed under various scenarios. I know we had A, B, C, D, and I think we opted for D, if I'm not mistaken. And that one was just one attorney and, if I'm mistaken, 2 staff members. So now which scenario is it that is being proposed that will be covered by this breakdown of expenses?
Full complement, I think was scenario A. The full complement of the center. I think it was scenario A that was proposed, but I don't have.
Your Honor, if it's only because I was partially involved, Kat, I might be able to help with that. The listing that you just mentioned, that was from the original, remember when we called it the wish list budget, the what it would take to run the operation. So it's much more than scenario D.
I see. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So
Mr. Mike, do you agree with that?
Yes, you are correct.
Thanks.
So we don't have that information in front of us as to for us to be current. And I first of all, I don't want to delay any ongoing operation of the Elder Justice Center. However, if we're going to increase activity, I'd like the board to be fully informed and grant its approval that this budget is going to be approved and they know what are the corresponding expenditure items. And so I'd like for this matter again to be brought up to the board at the next meeting with the corresponding staffing pattern attached so that we can correlate expense items to proposed expenditures and that the board be fully informed as to what they're approving and that ARP funds are authorized for these purposes and we don't end up having to reimburse any federal entity should that not be the case, and the board be given the assurance that it comes within those guidelines. So that would be my request unless the board members feel otherwise. Jackie,
Chief
you were-
Justice.
yes.
This is Trustee Terlahi. I would be concerned, I guess this issue I'd like to be addressed at our next meeting with regard to any hire as it relates to this budget, on the strategy plan on how we intend to conduct that hiring. Simply because the ARP funds, as I understand, is not a commitment to continue to provide that funding for a long-term basis. And so I would be concerned that the public defender will be assuming the hiring of classified employees entitled to protection. And then we have no funds, and then the public defender's budget would be obliged to pay for those obligations. So as part of our review of the budget as it pertains to that 580 for future hires, that we start to consider whether or not those future hires have got to be on a limited term, dependent on the budget. And that's just simply to protect our criminal indigent program.
Those are very good points, Jackie, and John Morrison. Maybe you can, provide guidance to the board in reference to hiring limited term appointments employees.
Yeah.
We will basically have a 2-year funding commitment for this, and so as Jackie points out, if that money expires and there is no support from the legislature to continue at the level that we have are expending from these the grant and the ARP funds, that the corporation not be saddled now with these fixed expenses. So I think, but my point though, Jackie, is that I would not want anything to be delayed in reference to current activity of the Elder Justice Center. But I think it's a valid point that we want to regroup now that we have these resources available in reference to how it's expended for the next 2 years, and that what limitations do we have in obligating those funds. And I fully agree with that. And PJ, do you have any insight in reference to this? You're muted again, PJ.
I agree with the president of the Guam Bar, but maybe I should add the notion that maybe we can do it on a contractual basis so that we don't have an obligation that they are employees of the public defender's office, so that their contract will just be for 2 years. We won't be paying for any health benefits or retirement benefits or any other benefits. And then that attorney will know that for 2 years, his contract will be in effect. And after 2 years, he knows that his contract may be terminated if there's availability, if there's no available funds to fund that contract. So it makes it a lot easier for us to divorce from that person than going through a grievance procedure, which is, as you know, CJ, it's a complicated issue. And I think if we do it by contract, we do the contract for 2 years, and once the 2 years is up, but we don't have the funds, sayonara.
Yeah, and it really applies to more than just the attorneys. We also have staffs that are being proposed in terms of secretaries, paralegals, and I don't know what other positions. So we want the help in reference to injecting the support services for this program for this period of time, but we want to be cautious that should we not then have the resources continuing forward after the exhaustion of these funds, that we have options that does not burden the corporation. Mr. Torre.
And Chief Justice, that the entire management agrees completely that we cannot hire anybody classified using grants and or the American Rescue Plan money. And so eventually we're hoping that, in our FY 2023 budget, we've established, that we're providing additional services, and that if we get legislative support at that point, because right now, to me, it's not really permanent until we can get the legislature to appropriate permanent funding for the program. And so we have 2 years to try to convince the legislature to make it a permanent addition. And until then, all the employees that are hired will be either LTAs or on contractual basis as the board recommends.
All right,
Your Honor,
Trustee Kanata, or do you have any comments or thinking? And then I'll ask you, QB, if you also have any points before we move on this. You're muted, Donna. Donna, you're muted.
I just want to make sure that everything we do or whatever we do, that we support the elderly justice program, and that, I mean, we do what we need to do, or we do what's necessary to do to keep the program running. I think that's what's most important to me, that we continue to do this even after the 2 years. So whatever it's going to take to help us get there, in compliance, I mean, as long as we're all kind of like on the same page about this program, I want to see this not just for 2 years. I want to see it for 10 years. Like, I mean, I'm sure I'm not going to be in the board 10 years from now, but I'm hoping that this program lasts for quite a long time.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think we all share the same sentiments. Attorney Ekubi.
Thank you, CJ and Your Honor, and President Terlahi and board member, board trustee, Ms. Kanata. I think everybody has really good points. Ideally, it is my goal, and I hope that this will continue for, many years to come, if through PDSC or another avenue that will continue with the elder justice. I think it serves a good cause, considering that and I'm sure Attorney President Terlahi, we do a lot of elder type, legal work, whether it's guardianships or assisting the elderly on certain cases or certain matters. I would tend to agree, and I do agree with what PJ has pointed out, and as well as Your Honor and Mr. Lahi. One is, I think we need to come back and we have to identify the actual obligation and how that correlates with the funding. So, we are fiduciaries, and we have to make sure that these funds that are appropriated are being done in a manner in which that this is why we're receiving the grant money for the PDSC. So I think rather than rushing into it, I agree that the next meeting that should be discussed. I also will agree with both President Terlahi and PJ, because as much as I would like to see this go beyond 2 years, my concern would be the legal implications of binding people who have this sort of expectation that they may think it's a permanent position. And we're all aware of this, and some of us have litigated it. And I think that, for now, until such time that there is a more reliable funding source, and we only know that the grant is only good for 2 years, I certainly would concur that we have to look at this either on a limited term appointment and or contractual appointment, because when you start providing permanent benefits, then the onus is going to fall back on PDSC to try to continue continue with paying for these benefits for those employees, albeit that they do a great job. It's just that now the onus is going to fall back on PDSC to come up with those monies. So I think for now, I think that's a good plan, is let's look at it from an either LTA contractual point of view. And if at such point in time, things change and the legislature makes this a regular, what you call a regular contribution each year, so there's some sense of security and funding to continue with the program, as Ms. Kanata pointed out that we hope to do. I just think we also need to make sure that as fiduciaries and as well, to avoid any legal issues down the road, that we consider protecting the not just the program but PDSC. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments. I think we're all on board, and fortunately we have a very capable administrative director and Kathy Ann Gugri, who will make sure that our sentiments are considered. And I have no doubt that you realize the limitations we have with the federal funds and the commitment that we can and cannot make for the longer term. So the board expressing its fiduciary responsibilities would like to have a plan of action at the next board meeting of how do we take advantage of the resources that have been granted to the corporation, utilize it for the next 2 years under the limitations of the respective federal grants, and that this gives us the opportunity to then continue to work to provide for a longer term funding should this be the policy decision of those in a position to financially support the corporation and the Elder Justice Center. So with that, Steve, if you can work with Kathy in reference to the concerns of the trustees, and let's have a plan of action that we can all work together and support so this Elder Justice Center can be a dynamic group that we envision in helping the elderly in our community. And so we would Kathy, do you need any authorization to expend until the next board meeting, or is tabling this for 30 days sufficient so that we can regroup and have a proper plan of action?
We can table it for 30 days. We were right, that bring us into December. Part of our plan included finding office space, so we can go ahead and table it, and it'll just push our office space back to like maybe February. We're gonna have to announce for that, but we're good with that.
Okay, I just don't want to contribute to any delay for us to implement the efforts of the Elder Justice Center because we're now caught up in how we utilize these resources that now have been granted to the corporation, and so you don't feel that there would be any type of delay in implementing the activities of the Elder Justice Center?
I would yield to Steve. He may have a difference of opinion. I'm not sure whether he feels that the delay would be.
I don't really think a delay would be that difficult to handle. I think as we're looking at hiring an attorney as soon as possible, full time, but of course any attorney we hire would be limited term anyways, and so but all that's contingent upon the government giving us the ARP money. So, and I don't know if we're really going to get that in a month.
And Steve, let me just say, Kathy, that you also have the DSC grant that has been approved. The budget that has been itemized there has been approved by the corporation. And so any expenses for the next 30 days can be earmarked towards the grant funds. And any larger expense, I think we should defer until there's a plan of action as how to expend that for the next year and into the second year.
No, that's right. I just realized since we're authorized to bill against the grant using our existing operational funds, we could delay till December. But we will have the staffing plan. I think we already have one drafted, right, Kat? We could send that around to everybody.
We have one drafted, and just to assure all the board members, that the EJC, because it's grant funded, we've always had limited term employees. With the 6-month pilot program, it was a 6-month limited term. With the proposal through the ARP, and even that we have the grant from DSC, all of those folks know they're limited term or on contract. So it's Guam, it follows the federal grant, that if there's no grant funding, they know at the time of hiring and recruitment that it is based on the grant funding. So to rest any concerns that the board has, that just always follow the grant funding. If there's no, and it's across the board with Guam, it's based on funding.
And that's why I preface my remarks that we have a very capable administrative director, and that I know you will
Thank you, Your Honor.
protect our interests.
Thank you.
And so, but I understand the sentiments of the trustees and exercising their fiduciary responsibilities. All right, so with that, I think we've exhausted. We completed our agenda. JT, if you can take that down or scroll up or do whatever we need to do. Where's the agenda? Okay, so we've done the new business, item A, and so let's proceed to item B under new business, the above step recruitment of Mr. Clyde Lemons, and I'll recognize Attorney Annie Gale on this item.
Thank you, Your Honor. We've asked the board to approve our hiring of Mr. Lemons one step above when he last left the public defender's office. At the end of October, our attorney that we hired from Saipan, Ms. Zona, left our office, and she has gone over to the civil side of the Attorney General's office. And she had about 60 cases to include murder, burglary, CSCs, some appeals. So we have her caseload to pick up again. And she had picked up John Morrison's caseload. So it's kind of like we're still at we need experienced trial attorneys to handle that caseload. At the moment, I've been putting out fires, just holding on to the cases until a new attorney can come aboard. And Mr. Lemons, you all know him, I think. He's been on Guam for a while. He's practiced in Saipan, in Chicago, and he was at David Lujan's firm, and he is planning on retiring in the next 6 months to 8 months. And so he's trying to figure out a place to go before he actually retires to the Philippines. And he thought that this would be a good exit strategy. And meanwhile, it would help me and APD because he would be able to pick up a caseload if it needs to go to trial and just go to trial if it needs to, because he's that experienced. We do need to ask the board approval for this above step. Since it is above step, it is only one step above. If you notice on my letter that I sent, he left the public defender's office at step 7, which is what Miss Zona was at the same time. And she would have been able to go to step 8 upon her, if she had stayed longer with APD. So we're just asking for one step. And it wouldn't be for a long-term I just said 6 months to a year at the most, because that's about how long Mr. Lemons said he could give me. Might not be that long, but I think at the most he could give me is 6 months. If you have any other questions, I can answer if you have anything. But that's basically the gist of it, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions for our managing attorney, Annie Gale, in reference to this topic?
Your Honor, I have a couple of questions I just wanted to ask Ms. Gale, just so for my understanding.
Sure.
And so if I may, Your Honor, if I know Ms. Gale is pretty good about responding. So thank you, Ms. Gale, for this. My only concern really, Ms. Gill and Your Honors and Board of Trustees is obviously, as I've mentioned earlier, just the fiduciary obligation, that we have as Board of Trustees. So I'm very mindful that any monies that are public monies that are being spent, that we make the best decision that would, serve the community at large and the organization. So I wanted to caveat with that. So few of my questions were, Annie, Ms. Gale, is that you mentioned that Mr. Lemons is only willing to commit to a 1-year period, correct? Maybe no more than 1 year. Up to, okay,
He's on his, he's trying to retire.
sure. And then you mentioned that Miss Zona had left, I'm assuming unexpectedly for you folks, but so she has about a 60 plus caseload that Mr. Lemons may be taking over and possibly more.
Well, what it is, how we have split it up is we each get a caseload, and for hers, I was looking at it, she's got about 60 that are open,
Okay.
that are specifically for her. So he would be able to
Okay.
take that over. That's correct.
Okay. And then with that caseload, you mentioned that you're fighting, you're trying to put out fires. So I just want to try to understand this. In that caseload that she had, because I am aware that she did a lot of heavy duty felony cases. Are there any upcoming trials or evidentiary hearings that I understand the importance of getting a seasoned and lawyer, but I'm just trying to understand this because I know you mentioned that she handles a lot of first degree aggravated murder, first degree criminal sexual assault. Those are very severe cases. They're serious.
I understand.
So-
Yes, exactly. So what we've done is the ones that are like, at least now, like in the last like 30 days that are coming up. I guess I'm allowed to tell you. I mean, we have some murder cases that are ongoing that were just in the paper today. I guess I'm allowed to say it because they're all public, but the Rudy Kanata murder, there's the Mendiola murder. There's a couple of murders that are coming up that have some specific technical issues. I know Pete Santos has taken over a couple of them, but it's just because we need to we have hearings, evidentiary hearings, and I know we had another one in front of Judge La Morena, which is the Bass case, which has a psychological component to it. So we do have murder cases that are coming up for different hearings and filing motions. And Miss Zona filed, she's a very prolific litigator, and she filed a lot of technical motions that need to be addressed and followed up with. So that's what we're doing as well, Miss.
Okay. So do you anticipate that if the board were to approve the one step above, recruitment, Mr. Lemons is going to be able to really take control and just address pretty much these pending cases for your office?
Yes.
Okay. And so in the interim, because you said this is just sort of for a temporary period, is your office or yourself, you're still continuing to do recruitment at some point to try to get somebody else in there?
Yes.
Within the allotted step.
Right.
And how many APD lawyers do you have now?
We have how many do we have? Let's see. We have 5 attorneys, but we also have Richard Dirks. He's retired, but he's helping us on a part-time basis. He submits hours, does the arraignments and the magistrates positions. We are allowed to have am I correct, 5 or 6? 6. But we only have at this point in time, we are short term is we want Mr. Lemons to come in and help us. Long term is, of course, get another attorney to come in.
Okay. Well, that's just generally the questions that I wanted to ask. Thank you, Ms. Gale. Your Honor. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for our managing attorney of the APD? So I feel that's important that we support Ms. Gale, and in reference to this circumstance that she finds herself in as a result of a experienced lawyer leaving her office with such a heavy caseload. As I understand this is an interim measure so that it will give her more time to recruit without taking all the big risk with these major cases that are ongoing. And so I feel that we should provide the support and this above step recruitment with the corresponding benefits. I mean, this is pretty much a limited term position, Annie.
It
And
is.
So if we can make it such that,
Mhm.
and let me ask this, is there a financial impact to the APD's budget in approving this above step recruitment?
No, Your Honor, because we've been able, because they were pretty much at the same level as Ms. Zona, she would just be slotted in, he would just be slotted into what she would have already gotten, and we had already, set aside that for her position. So
Are we able to do this for a 6-month limited term contract? And do we have to pay benefits as a result? Well, I don't
think we paid them.
well, because he would like to come in with the benefits because he's still, he's going to retire, but he still wants to get benefits from Guam if he can. And because it is going to be short term, he did not want to go down the route of a limited term, limited LTA.
Just a couple of questions, Annie. I know Clyde worked for the Attorney General's office and also for Public Defender.
Mhm.
And I know that he has some time with the retirement fund, right?
Mhm.
Yes, Your Honor.
I don't know whether he came in under the the old plan or the new plan. But now he said he'll be serving 1 year, but if he's going to try to complete his retirement, I really am not well versed in the new plan, but he doesn't have to wait an X number of years, right, to retire.
No, but I think he still
Okay.
wants to be able to
A contribution.
money into his retirement. Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept the request, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so there's a motion to approve the above step recruitment of Mr. Clyde Lemons as proposed by the managing attorney for a interim period of time until such time as the corporation hires a longer term personnel to fill this position. So the bottom line is there's a motion to adopt a above step recruitment of Mr. Clyde Lemons as proposed by the managing attorney. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right, it's been seconded by Attorney Terlahi. Any further discussion? There being none,
None.
all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, it's been unanimously adopted and you may proceed with your above step recruitment. And we take it that you would try to save as much money as possible for APD.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Your
thank
Honor.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Mhm.
Or any other business before the corporation? And none under public discussion. And so our next meeting date is Tuesday, December 28th, 2021. And with that, we have completed our agenda topics for today's meeting. Is there a motion? Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and please continue to be safe and enjoy a little more spirited holiday this year than we had last year.
Happy
One else.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving all.
Okay, motion
I move to adjourn to December
Second.
28th at 12:30.
moved and seconded. There being no objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and be safe.
Thank you.
night.
Bye.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, everyone. And
Thank
thank you
you.
for lunch.
Thank you for lunch too.